Thank you.
Okay, and as far as my slide deck, what I ask is that if you do, if there's slides that are of interest, please send me an email and I'd be happy to send you what I have, slides that are of interest to you, right? So happy to do that. But I just ask that you send me your email or you email me. I'll share that information at the end. Thank you. All righty, so moving along here. Now I want to ask you this question. What do you think friendship is, right? What does friendship mean to you? So that's what we're here about tonight is friendship. I want you to come up with a 3 to 4 word phrase to answer that question. And then let's get this chat box rumbling. So 3 to 4 words. Now in inclusion, we're very flexible. So if it's 2, that's okay. If it's 5, I'm okay with that too. But I just wanted to give somewhere of a reference to where to start. So think of, a 3 to 4 word phrase to answer that question. What's friendship mean to you? Let's see what we're coming up with. People who delight in each other. Oh, love that. Reciprocal relationships, shared interest, give and take, a feeling of belonging, positive and supportive reciprocal relationships, spend time with, trust, loyal care. Oh my goodness, I'm loving this. I'm seeing them, these all, they're fantastic. Have fun together. Celia, age 5. Thank you, Celia. Trustworthy, balanced relationship, caring about another person, trust and just, oh my goodness, we're all on the same page here. People who care about one another, respect one another, have fun together, supporting each other's in joyful ways during all seasons. Okay, and I missed a couple there, but I'm going to see them all and read them all later, and they're there for you to see as well. So we're getting in that mode. We're recognizing what friendship means or what it should mean, right? Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about why is this topic so important, right? Talking about students with and students without disabilities and being friends. Why is this so important? So, I just want to share a few thoughts on intentional work to foster friendships between children with and without disabilities, right? So that process of social interaction that results in friendships, right? It's more difficult for some than others, and more so for kids with disabilities, right? And here's why I want to take a moment to talk about, some of you may say, well, so is there something wrong with two persons with disabilities being friends? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. There's value to these friendships. But through tonight's discussion, what we're going to be talking and investing our energies in is relationships that are less common, but very worthwhile to support. Okay, so we're all here. We believe in inclusion, right? But that may not be enough. Just being inclusive or being in the same space, it is generally not enough. We need to take some more steps, and that's what we're going to be here tonight. And we're going to hope that by the end of this, you understand that the benefits are tremendous, and that we could start working on this together. So in this photo, and why do we want friendships for kids with disabilities and without disabilities? Because those children become adults. And I want you to meet Matthew and Eric. Okay, so say hi, Matthew and Eric. They happen to live in Whitman, and they were in a toolkit or a book that I wrote, and I'm just going to share a little bit about this. And Melissa, if you want to throw into the chat box. Excellent. The link to receive a copy of this book. Here it is. Little toolkit that I wrote during COVID. This is what I was doing, but it's about friendships between persons with and without. The audience for this, now this is for everybody here. You want a copy of this because you want to be able to hand this to somebody at a local town rec program, or a teacher, or a instructor at a YMCA, or any other community organization. So that's who the intended audience is, but it's really good information for you to read as well. So Matthew and Eric, throughout this toolkit, it teaches the community how to, number one, be more inclusive, and number two, what is their role in helping a person with and a person without a disability to perhaps be in a better chance of meeting because of reciprocal or shared interest, and developing a friendship. So what your role is, if you're running a group or a class, or you're a teacher, right? In tonight's case, what we're focusing on. So the ARC of Massachusetts. I want to thank them. They are wonderfully responsible for not just this toolkit, but 4 previous toolkits. You should be able to, by the link that Melissa's put into the chat box, access to receive a copy of this. If by some chance, when you go through that link, there's any issues, no worries, write to me and I will make sure you get a copy. Just send me your full name and your full address and I will make sure you get a copy. Okay, so the Pathways to Friendship Project, there's 4 books that were written prior to this one. This is number 5. And the 4 books were written for family members and for teachers and for people who work in the field of supporting folks with disabilities. And I would really recommend you're able to go ahead and get all 4 books. There, one is focused on where making friends where you live, right? Where you work, where you learn, and where you play, right? Recreation, written for family members and written for, say, direct support professionals or others who support folks with disabilities, teachers as well. So this 5th one, again, is written for you to give to somebody. This is written for the outside community, the folks who run something that is for the general community. So I just wanted to share that. And I would like to tell you a little bit about Matthew and Eric. That didn't go in for some reason. I'm sorry. I'm going to read it right from here for you. Okay, so Matthew and Eric, they live in Whitman, and I just want to share a little bit about their friendship. They met as children, playing in the neighborhood together. Matthew quotes the day as May 31st, 1986, to be exact. Wiffle ball, kick the can, and ghost in the graveyard were the neighborhood favorites, Eric recalls. When Maddie started playing with us, he was just one of the gang, included in every way. It wasn't until years later that he learned what Down syndrome was while watching the TV series Life Goes On. I never saw Maddie as any different than any of the rest of us. I mean, we just had fun together. All right, so that's just an excerpt of 5 of the different friendship pairs that you'll meet in this book. All right, just wanted to point that out to you. So hopefully we were able to get you all copies of that. Oh, there it is. Oh, God, I missed it. All right, so there's a picture of Matthew and another one there with Eric's, I think that's his 4th child, but Eric describes their friendship. Maddie is more than my best friend. He is part of my family. Matthew responds. Eric always remembers my birthday, which is April 8th, by the way. He will always be buddies. He's been in my life forever. So love that. Alrighty, so those slides were just a little out of order. I apologize for that. I was literally throwing them in a minute before we were jumping in. But our first steps are to talk about words matter and disability etiquette. And I want to just, take a moment to talk about why do words matter? Because words have power, right? For persons with disabilities, incorrect perceptions and negative attitudes or words are often a great barrier, right, to overcome. So we want to be very mindful of the words and the language that we're using. Sometimes the well-meaning words that others use in conversation or online or in the media have a lot to do with those attitudes. And so by learning and using acceptable and empowering words with a focus on positive attributes and strengths and showing respects to people with disabilities. So that's kind of a little bit behind the scenes why we want to be thinking about words matter. All right, so we'll start with some disability etiquette, person first language, and then words to lose. And why this is important, I think, that a lot of hesitancies for, particularly youth and others in the community, when I work with people in the community, one of the first things, well, what if I say the wrong thing? And I'm a little hesitant here. I don't know if I should say this or that. And I think just learning some nice tips will help you moving forward, be more comfortable, right? Or to help if you're a parent and you are have a child in high school without a disability, these are some things that maybe would help them to feel more comfortable. All righty. So yeah, Siri, how do I talk to a person with a disability? And Siri says, it's easy to say hi. Let's talk about person first language. So what does this mean? It's this is language that tells what a person has, not what a person is. So it's an objective way of acknowledging and communicating about disabilities. So we never want to equate a person with a disability like the epileptic lady, right? Or the paraplegic person, right? We don't want to equate them with a disability. That's just a medical diagnosis. All right, so what do we say then? And I think that's the important question. But before we move on, I just want to peek at the chat box and see if there's anything else that, thank you. Saving space, it must be meaningful. Excellent, thank you. Looking forward, thanks, excellent. I appreciate the responses on the toolkit. Being a tick. Alrighty, so we're going to skip over and go right into some examples of what this would look like, right? So this would say, instead of the handicapped or the disabled, we would say person with disabilities, okay? Instead of she is mentally ill, crazy, or emotionally disturbed, we would simply say she has a mental health condition. All right, here's my tricky one. Instead of the autistic kid, okay, well, I'm going to trick you up a little bit here. He has autism. However, I want to make note of it because in the autism community, probably a little bit more than not, folks with autism, many prefer the identity first. So they may prefer, you know, I'm an autistic person. They prefer that. And we honor that. I just put that up there to say, you know, mostly and in general, person first language, unless somebody requests identity first. And it's somewhat common in the autism community and also sometimes in the deaf community as well. All right. But otherwise, everything else, person first language. I just wanted to make that point. Normal or healthy kids, normal is a setting on the dryer. We lose that word, right? What we would say is children without disabilities, right? Sometimes neurotypical, so whatever the situation would call for. Instead of confined to or wheelchair bound, that a person's confined to a wheelchair. No, what we would say is a person who uses a wheelchair, basically. Okay. All right. And now that's a little bit of examples of person first language. So we, instead of saying the Down syndrome kid, it's a boy who has Down syndrome, or that's Patrick, more likely. We just use their name, right? What is their name? That's what we want to focus on. What's their name? Their name is Chase, and he happens to have Down syndrome. Okay. So a few other examples of words we're going to try to lose and words to live by. Again, more empowering words and positive words. Stricken with, victim, suffering from. And we would replace this with had or has a disability, right? Simply that's how we might state that. Handicap parking, we want to lose the word handicap and say accessible parking as well, okay? And just for note, a person is not handicapped. The environment is what handicaps somebody or makes it not accessible. So, you know, we kind of lose that phrase of like a handicapped person, because if you think about it, a person is not handicapped. It's the environment, right? It's that lack of a ramp or the lack of just be an inviting and welcoming environment that makes something not accessible. So we'll use accessible instead. Disabled rights or disabled groups, and instead, I noticed I have a typo there. Did anybody else catch that? Oops. Disability rights or disability community. Special bus, special housing. Instead, we might say separate bus, segregated housing. Okay. All right. So those words special, the last ones that just came up, I want to talk a little bit about that. So special needs, right? It's an ineffective euphemism, can be found offensive to some, right, in the disability community. So I just want to point out, saying disabled, the disability is okay, right? It's a word that we want to reclaim, or it's part of somebody's identity. So it's okay to use that word. A community in itself, it's not a positive or negative, it's just a word, it's the disability community, all right? And then think about this. Needs are not special, the needs that we're talking about, right? To be able to communicate, to go to school, to have friends, to get a job, to participate in activities, right? To have access to what everybody else access. That isn't really special, right? That's just what we all look, they're human needs. We all look to have those fulfilled. So, you know, and just kind of wrapping up this segment, when we set the tone that they are special needs, we minimize their rights, right? It's a right, not something special we do for them, all right? So they have a right to these needs. It shouldn't be something like special that we're doing for them, because it's going to minimize their rights. So, for example, instead of special education or SPED kids, maybe you've heard that before. Oh, is that a SPED kid? Is that a special education kid? Let's try to lose that and think about it's a student who accesses special education services, okay? And then if we were perhaps in a camp setting, right? I've heard this before. Is that one of the inclusion kids? Oh, is he an inclusion kid? Right? That kind of talk, identifying somebody as an inclusion kid. What we want to try to do is lose that. And it's simply a camper, right? Who happens to utilize inclusion support. So we want to try to take all that identity of being special or being like an inclusion kid and just to, identify the child as, this is Sarah or this is Joey or whatnot. Okay. So just something else to think about there. So just wrapping this whole segment up, inclusion, right? Thinking about inclusion, because we hopefully we understand that we need to have inclusion to be able to move towards friendship. It's about intentionally planning for the success of all. So intentionally planning, no different than that includes as friends. So we have to intentionally work at friendships being developed. All right. So we think about it that way. It's the intentional work. And it's starting tonight by you being here and listening to this and ordering your toolkit and getting a copy of that. Right. And just learning more about how we can intentionally work to help kids with and kids without disabilities to be friends. And I see a lot of things in the chat box. I just want to check in and see how we're doing here. Oh, thank you. Let me see. I've got to go up a little bit. This is fantastic. This is the most chat I've had in a chat box in a while. Excellent. Oh, thank you, Emily. Yes, not having autism, but autistic, right? So we went over that is one of the exceptions. Oh, good. Okay, there we go. Phew, thank you. I teach my education students, ask people how they prefer identity, right? Person first, language identity. It's a very good question. Just ask that up first. How do you prefer? Normal is wrong. No one is normal. And if you call someone normal, it's kind of rude. Hannah, 10. Thank you, Hannah. Sometimes out of the mouth of babes, it's just so easy right there. You go, Hannah. Social models of disabilities versus the medical model. Thank you, Annabelle. Annabelle, thank you. I have come across the term neurodivergent coming from the SD community recently, and it really speaks to me. Okay, yeah, I've heard that a lot too. And I was reading an article on that. Thanks, Val, for bringing that up. And I understand the concept of person first language, but the term special needs, something we should stay away from in general. Yeah, if possible, if we can stay away from that special needs, and hopefully we made that clear tonight. Okay, so the intentional work. So no matter what role you're here, if you're a parent of a child with or without a disability, you're a teacher, you are a student yourself, there is work that we need to do to help for these friendships to occur. All right, so let's start talking about that. But first, let's talk about the importance of friendship. Okay. And just a note before we move on. So as we begin this section, I just want you to think about friendships you've had. Consider these as we explore each of the areas that we're going to explore, right? Maybe think about this question too. What would it be like if you had no friends, right? So kind of maybe think about that, put that in your head, and how did you meet your friends? So think about all that, right? How did you meet your friends? How are your friends important to you? What would it feel like if you didn't have friends? So let's get started on what friendship, this segment of the presentation, the importance of friendship. We're going to go over definition and attributes, a little bit of disability history to tie it all in, and then the benefits experienced through friendship. All right, let's define and exploring what is friendship. So we did a little bit of that earlier. I welcome you to throw back in the chat book some other ideas as well on what friendship means to you. We kind of did that earlier. We can refer back there, but if you thought of anything else new, we're looking at what are the characteristics, right? What are the attributes that are important in your friendship? So think about your friendship. What are those characteristics that you would want or that you have experienced, right? And we want our friendship, we want to be thinking about voluntary, reciprocal relationship where two students, right, have a mutual attachment to each other, right? That there's frequent proximity, right? Togetherness and companionship and evidence of enjoyment or affection. So that quote right there, I just want to mention that came from Zachary Rossetti, and he is from UMass. No, I'm getting that wrong. Melissa?
EU.
You okay? Yeah, Jessica totally got that wrong. And he actually wrote one of the toolkits, so I would really recommend it on in the school setting. So building friendships toolkit in the school setting. And we thank Zach for his contributions. And you'll see little segments where I've quoted him because his work is just fabulous. So what does friendship mean? It's the enjoyment of others company, right? Where there's trust, where there's understanding, where there's respect for each other. Perhaps friendships for you, it's when you give to each other. It may be in different ways, but it's still valued. And you're close, even when apart, right? And how many of us have those friends where we're really close, even when apart? We look forward to being together. All righty. And reciprocal, really important word. We've seen this already swirling around the chat box. Really important, reciprocal, that it's give and take both sides, right? That both persons are involved and invested in this friendship, expressing mutual action and benefit to each other. All right, so do we think about anything else? Let me see in the chat box what we've got here. All righty, excellent, thank you. Melissa's got something to share there. Oh, excellent, Dr. Zach Rossetti, thank you for throwing that in. I appreciate that. Equal footing, admiration, respect, bi-directional, I love that. Wonderful responses here. You know, some other things to think about with friendship, transcending context, right? So there are multiple settings that we're thinking about. Companionship, we already spoke about that, mutuality, support, just some other words, maybe stability, loyalty. I think maybe somebody talked about that earlier. And an emotional bond, right? That's important. So we got a good idea what friendship is, right? And that's what we should be striving for. So let's go to the next slide. Understanding disability history. So despite decades of advancement in disability rights and efforts towards inclusion, we still have aspects of our society that continue to be inaccessible to people with disability. Agreed? I think everybody here would agree, right? And those, so we often act as if people with intellectual disabilities, you know, perhaps should be with their own kind, right? There's that kind of attitude that could be prevalent with their own kind, right? The expectation that people participating in community rec organizations or in school settings would be taken care of. They have their own teachers, they have their own friends, they have their own classes of whatnot. So that kind of lends to the, you know, idea that, lack of a better word, that's not for me, that's not my issue, but we want to change that, right? Friendships between people with and without disabilities should and could be possible. So we want to look in that world. Yeah, and we want to think about, in order for this to happen, we want to be welcoming students into the membership of the student body, right? And into participating with their peers as much as possible in the school setting. And then, you know, as a member, as a team, as a group, as in an activity, right? And so I'm hoping that is what we're going to take from this slide here. And as we move on, that we need to move past here. Okay, but we understand people with disabilities may be in your community and may be in your school community, but they're not always of your community or really members of your school community. All right, let me just check in the chat box, a couple things here. Excellent, so just another add in from Melissa, thank you. Fantastic. All right, so I want to share this with you. This is an image of non-belonging, right? This was a study that demonstrates the impact of previously discussed the history, right? Has had on the current day relationships of people who are at a higher risk of isolation and loneliness. So this study was done with, and it was done with adults, right? That they indicated, they were asked about the relationships that this person had with other people within the community, with everyone, right? And who were the relationships, who were the people they had contact with? And so this study showed that I think it's a total of 88% of their human, so this is adults with intellectual developmental disabilities, 88% of their connections with other human beings were either other people with disabilities or paid human service staff. 88%. Then you throw in family members, which was another 7%. So the amount of connection that they had with somebody in the community that was not paid, that was not another person with a disability or family member, was less than 5. And then actually, if they looked at like really more involved relationships, was 2.1. Okay, so think about that for a minute. That's an issue, because that's saying that people with disabilities aren't really members of our community. That's what we're looking for to change. And what I like to say is this is the reason what we want to start young with kids, and then teens in high school, or kids in, elementary school or whatnot, and start so that we can change this, so that, hopefully in 10 years and 15 years and 20 years, this is change. And there's more connections with friends or other citizens. Because when we think of our lives, how many of our connections in our lives are with other community members, right? Friends that we have, other citizens, other community members. So we're going to be looking to change that. And that's what I'm hoping, that if this sticks with you tonight, that's something that I'm looking to change when we talk about disability history. Let's get rid of that. So why go through all this? And let's talk about, though, the benefits experienced in friendship, right? If we think about what are some of the benefits that we do experience, and I welcome you to, share in the chat box. Think about your friends, right? A friendship you have could be a friend from childhood, from school age, from it could be a current friend, or college if you're an adult on here, from work, so on and so forth, right? What are the benefits experienced through friendship for you? And this study comes from the Mayo Clinic staff on friendships. People with friends are happier, healthier, and safer. Now, would we agree with that? I think we would, right? And when we think about our friendships, and that brings us a lot of happiness, right? And altogether, having friends and access to friends makes us healthier and safer. So again, feel free to throw into the chat box, what are your benefits that you experience with your friends, right? Let's see. Increases your sense of belonging and purpose. Improve your self-confidence and worth. Help you cope with traumas such as serious illness, job loss, the death of a loved one. Who do we turn to, right? Maybe family, yeah, that could be your first step, but who do we really turn to? We turn to our friends for that. These are important things that we experience as benefits of friendships. Friends also play a significant role in promoting your overall health, right? Let me see in the chat box what we've got going here. Oh yeah, Kathleen, yeah, thank you for pointing that out. Huge issue. Paid professional statistics is really telling. That's not that those aren't the loveliest of humans. Absolutely not that they're lovely, absolutely, but they're not reciprocal friends. So I think that chart really does kind of open up some eyes there. Yes, courage, accountability to do the hard things. That's what friends, Kathleen gets from her friendship, gaining a new perspective on life that I wouldn't necessarily consider otherwise. I love that, Casey. Fully known, fully loved, enhances interest in all hobbies, right? Advises on important life matters, helps us better define our purposes. Love it. And these are all wonderful benefits experienced through friendship, feeling wanted, needed, supported. Now, the question I want to ask of you, hold on one second. I lost my little screen there for a second. Let me pull that back up. Hit the wrong button. Here we go. So what I want to ask for you, we just went over a lot of benefits here on the slide. We have some that were in the chat box that we shared. Maybe you're thinking of other benefits that you're experienced. Shouldn't kids, teens, adults with developmental, intellectual, any type of disability or diverse ability, shouldn't they experience all of this as well? Right? Meaningful friendships. So that's what I want us to think about. And in fact, right, we think about friendships, and another benefit, they can lead to jobs, right? New experiences, intimate relationships, and sometimes even a partner or spouse, right? Wouldn't we want everyone to experience these benefits. So kind of leave on that and a nice positive way for us to think, yeah, okay, so hopefully we're all on board and want to start moving toward friendship, right? And helping others with and without disabilities to become friends. So back to the slide, just again, want to point out this inclusion area here. And that's the space that we want to be in as much as possible, because if we think about it, go back again, look at that again, where are we most likely to have a situation where a person with and without a disability would have the opportunity to meet, share common interests, and become friends? It's really only going to happen in an inclusive world, inclusive models as much as possible in our schools, in our recreation areas, as much of our community as possible, in our job settings as well. Okay. Fantastic. I just wanted to check into the chat box. One more thing came in. We can have the full range of emotions with our friends, from joy to sadness, even no words, right? Just being. So hopefully we want this for everyone. So we're all agreeing that the more inclusion we can have, the better opportunities we have to start to think about two persons developing a relationship that might end up being a friendship. All right, we're ready to take this pathway now. We're doing good on time. We're about halfway through. Sip of tea, hold on. The pathway towards friendship and belonging, right? Really important word there, belonging. So these are strategies for family members and pairs. And no matter what your role is here today, I want you to, some of this you will embrace, some of it you would use, but some of it you will be maybe sharing with someone within your family. You might have a conversation with your son or daughter, right? Or someone else that you know, a friend, a neighbor. And I think, think about the information, not just for yourself, but how can we share this with others? Because that's truly how we're going to make more inclusive communities. The more we talk about it and the more we give suggestions or ways to think about it differently, right? To imagine, let's imagine that this could happen. And once they know that this is possible, then we're more apt to kind of put energy into this and when we see the benefits from it. All righty, let's get started. So before we begin, why are friendships important in a school setting, right? So we'll talk about that, but I just a little bit on friendships. Friendships, they're valued social relationship that result in that personal benefit across the lifespan, right? We've seen that, right? We were just talking about that a moment ago, and they provide that vehicle for developmental gain. Okay, so that's just a different added bonus there for friendships and enrich the lives of each friend. All right, so and here, this comes from Dr. Zach Rossetti as well. That results in personal benefit, facilitate developmental gains, leads to positive school outcomes, protects against bullying, and enriches individuals' lives and the classroom setting. So those are more specific to the classroom. How important is that? All right, and as well, schools where we learn and practice our social skills. So this is a perfect setting for friendships to be developing. We're going to take you through some top strategies. The first one being develop that friendship mindset. What does that mean? So we're going to think about the quantity and quality of social interaction opportunities. Okay, I'm going to take a peek into each one of those. And then here's something that I want you to think about. And this is one of my inclusion principles that I teach to outside communities. It's called let's get to yes approach, or let's get to success. Often when we have a challenge that's presented to us, no matter what the challenge, and it could be, oh, hey, Joey, what do you think about Robert over there? Robbie's really seemed to be very interested in something together, and you both like robotics. What do you think about maybe introducing yourself, becoming a friend? Now, in someone's mind, they could be thinking, oh my goodness, no, what if this happens? Or I don't know what to do here. I'm not quite sure, right? So anytime we hit a barrier like that, or something is proposed to us where we're to try something new, right? Or something's different, often our response can be really, it's just like this natural response, and it's almost focused in the what could go wrong. Well, what if this happens? I don't know how to do this. What if that happens? I don't think so. And so you come up with all these reasons why it's not going to work. So with friendship, what I want us to do is to kind of push that aside and not think about what can go wrong, but let's think about what can go right. Let's imagine what that friendship and all the benefits that can go along with it. So that's the approach. It's just this mindset shift to think about, how do we get to yes? All right. So we kind of embrace that. I know it's more of an inclusion strategy, but I think it works in friendships as well. So we want to get that approach. How do we get to yes? We want to ensure a reciprocal and mutual involvement. All right. So we have, talked about how important that is. And that truly is real friendship. So it's not, can you volunteer to be their friend, right? No, we're talking about reciprocal, mutual, where both are benefiting from the friendship. So we want to keep that at the cornerstone when we're thinking about one person with and one person without a disability in their friendship. All right, you know what? Just one more thing I forgot to mention in this developing this mindset. So, most importantly, we want to believe that the student with the disability not only can develop and maintain a friendship, but would make a wonderful friend. So that's something we want to be thinking about, right? When we think about that, let's get to yes. If we can just imagine that, yes, absolutely, they can be a wonderful friend. They can maintain a wonderful friendship and, provide lots of benefits. So we want to think about that. And then also, before we start this work, we can't make or force friendships to happen, right? We can't force two people to be friends. So I want to keep that in mind as we're going through these strategies. But what we're looking to do is maximize or increasing, right, that those social opportunities that can lead to the development of friendship. Okay, so that's what we're kind of looking for. We're looking for the strategies that increase that opportunity. Right, just want to clarify that before we moved on. Maximize inclusion. So we want to talk about the quantity of inclusion, right? So we want to think of that circle in the space with all the colored dots together. So we want to maximize the time that a student with and a student without disabilities have the opportunity to be together. So we think about in and out of the classroom time, right? Could be after school activities, weekend stuff, things not only in the classroom, but outside. It could be more in the hallway, in the lunchroom, spaces that you could have more interactions with a potential friend. Think about existing classes, clubs and activities, right? And then particularly if it can focus on a student's interest, something that they're interested, maybe you're both interested in band or drama or, like a robotics class or something of that nature, or another group or activity. So if there's a mutual interest in an activity, that's always a really good connecting area. And then anytime there's opportunities to collaborate on a task together, right? Maybe there's, a class float is being decorated or something, that can you work together on that? Or maybe there's a volunteer opportunity, or we're going to be, collecting food for the local shelter. So maybe somebody's working together on that particular activity. Anytime you have opportunity for that. Okay, we also want to, I just see something in the chat box, just give me a moment to check in with that. Just because an individual is included in a physical environment does not mean they feel the sense of belonging. Absolutely, Annabelle, I love this. I'm reminded of this when thinking about friendship and belonging in the environment. Really good point. So that it's not just proximity, but it's actual, really belonging. So being welcomed, engaged, and supported, all really important. It's not just, oh, sure, they sit here at a table next to me, but no, we're talking, we're sharing ideas, we're laughing, things of that nature. So thank you for bringing that up. Now let's talk a little bit about maximizing inclusion quality. All right, so now that we've increased the quantity, right, as much as possible, it's really critical to focus on improving the quality of social interactions, right, and opportunities. So two students may interact frequently, but social interactions are still one-sided, right? Maybe that's perhaps what's happening more on the surface level, right? So, and this is, I think this is a Zach Rossetti thing too, past the high fives, right? We want to move past the, hey buddy, high five in the hallway. How you doing? Let's get a picture. Yeah, you know, that kind of past that. So we want deeper involvement, right? And just value in the the quality of the interactions that are there. Past that surface level is what we're looking for. Past just, and I think Annabelle, you spoke to this, just sharing space, right? Just being polite. Beyond mere acceptance in the great, you know, hi, I accept you in here in a greeting. So we want to move past that. And again, we're looking for mutual, reciprocal, based on common interests whenever possible. You know, and this focuses on somebody's strengths. Students tend to befriend others they perceive as being valued in the classroom or the community. So we want to, we're going to go over that in a moment. So we just want to think about that. All right, so let's talk about quality. What are some of the things we can think about in this space? Focus highlights similarities, right? So you want to learn somebody's likes and dislikes. And it brings me to a story. It's in Knowing Jesse, that book, and if you've ever had a chance to listen to it, it's fabulous. And there's we're actually going to meet Jesse in a little while, and written by Marion Leone. I listened to the audiobook because her voice is just so engaging, and I love that book. But she talked about when her son first met his friend, and they were in elementary school, and they both hated coloring. So that was like a common bond. And it just her, you know, description of that they were friends because they both hated coloring, which is really kind of powerful. But, you know, somebody's likes and dislikes. What are the similarities between the two there? What would you like to know? Right, so we want to start thinking about that. Learn how to communicate and interact with this person. So what do you need to know about this person, and who can you ask? Is there someone that maybe their parent or a parent, a teacher, or someone? Obviously the person first, but are there certain things that you may want to learn that would be helpful for you to feel more comfortable going up and communicating and interacting with this person? Okay. And again, let's get past that high five stage. That's great. That's wonderful. High five, dude, that's cool. But we want to move past that. Yep, Knowing Jesse, excellent. Melissa, you're so good. Like, I just thinking something and boom, she throws that right in. Fantastic book. I'm telling you, please read it. It's just, it's out of this world. All right, so we talked about similarities and, you know, likes, dislikes, but how about somebody's gifts? How do we discover someone's gifts, right? Their passions, their interests. We want to kind of look past the disability and really get to know this person. Obviously, you start with the person, you ask them questions, but it could be perhaps you're engaging family for support in this area, you know, depending on the situation. So we really want to know what is great, what makes this person shine. Often what happens with persons with disabilities that there's focus so much on the negative or the behavior, or that they might do this or this is different about them, but we don't take an awful lot of time to say, hey, what do you love? What are you great at? What are you passionate about? What are your interests? And then we build upon those. All right, recognize out loud somebody's great qualities. It might be like, oh, that's so nice how you did that. You're just the kindest person. Or, wow, I love how you made that sign. Very creative. I'm really impressed with the colors you chose there. So start using, you know, words where you're saying out loud somebody's great qualities. Focus on strengths that lead to valued roles. And we're going to take a moment there. But before I do, I just want to check in with the chat box. I love all these communication here. When the person with disability says speech, physical, toileting barriers, and needs aids, to make it challenging to form deeper relationship, although it's not impossible, right? So when they have those deeper, it does make it more challenging, Marie, for sure, when there are those barriers and those needs, but it's not impossible, and you know that firsthand, 100%. What makes this person shine? Absolutely. So, and there's some beautiful photos there of people doing what they love and shining. So let's talk about this valued roles. What does this term mean? I'm going to share with you. Some might be familiar with this. This comes from Wolfensberger, and it's the theory of social role valorization. All right, just want to share that, and then we're going to get back to the slide here. And this is the premise is that individuals with intellectual developmental disabilities are more likely to experience social belonging and friendship when they hold socially valued roles. Socially valued roles may be achieved by enhancing one's social image, right? Or their competencies or their skills. So what does this look like? And I just love that. And so if that's something else you want to look up, SRV or social role valorization, Wolfensberger, if you're on this call and you're all into this, you're going to love that. So by recognizing inherent potential gifts and building upon someone's strengths, you've set the stage for a person to have a valued role. So this girl on the top, she's an artist. Okay. He's a gardener. The child there, they're an archer. And this beautiful girl at the top here, she's a storyteller. Okay, so see what we focus on. When you really focus on their gifts, what makes them shine, their talents, when we start identifying them as their role, they're more likely to be seen by, peers as, just a valued member of the community, and then it enhances their chance for friendship. There's first nerds there. Oh, Melissa, I love you. You're so funny. All right, fantastic. So another strategy we want to be thinking about, addressing bullying. Okay. And, this is really important information. I know they do a lot of work on this in the schools, but it doesn't hurt to review it here. So, if you're a student or if you're a parent of a student, maybe we can review this with them. Become an active bystander, or better yet, what we call an upstander for a peer. If you feel safe, tell the kids who are being mean to knock it off, or say that's not cool, right? So there's some suggestions. Ask the victim if they are okay. Check in with them, maybe during lunch, recess, other times. All right. So make sure that you're having a good check in there with them, and discuss the situation with an adult and encourage the victim to do so as well. So just a really important little note on bullying. It's just a way just to be a supportive person to someone who may be being bullied, and perhaps maybe because of a disability or difference that they have. Okay, how are we doing? All right, we're caught up with the chat box. We're on to our next top strategy, effective communication. So we want to learn and practice the language tips we shared earlier, right? So when we went over those person first language and the words to lose and the words to live by, we want to be practicing that. And not only do we want to practice that and model it, but we want to help to teach others. So if somebody's using an incorrect term, perhaps you can suggest an alternative. Be age appropriate in your interactions. All right. This is really important to think about so often. And I'm sure many of you on this call have seen this before. Maybe it's let's say a 17-year-old student, a young boy with Down syndrome, let's say, and everybody's going, he's so cute, and this is so cute, and there's kind of like almost baby talk that goes around, interacting with that person when he's 17 years old, and it's really not the way we would interact with another 17-year-old. So we want to be very mindful of that. Often with somebody with a developmental disability or Down syndrome or otherwise, that there can be this playful, almost childlike banter interaction. We want to try to lose that and think about how we can interact with them at what is more age appropriate, because you're setting, kind of expectations if you think about it in that way. We want to use positive language, right? And this is one of my inclusion strategies that I teach to everybody. Really important to think about this. And you know what? We're all in this call. We're all going to say, well, maybe we can learn a little thing here too, because we do this. We tend to do this sometimes. So when you're giving direction, instruction, or you're helping to correct someone or give guidance to someone, we really want to focus on what you would like to see or occur. Okay, so I'll give you an example in a moment, rather than pointing out the bad. So, if you're a teacher or instructor of some type, and the simplest thing I can give is instead of saying, stop running, Walk, please. Very simple, right? Let me give an example on what that might look like peer-to-peer. Stop interrupting Jason, it's rude. Okay, maybe we might say that to a peer, but instead language to be more direct, because we're trying to teach what we'd like to see or what we'd like to occur, if that makes sense. So instead we might say, I want to hear what you have to say if you could wait until Jason finishes his story. Okay, so you're kind of giving direction to wait, and then I'll listen to what you have to say. So it's just a more positive way of doing that. And you're being very clear on what you'd like to see. It's almost like social expectations. So you're being very clear about that. Okay, our next one, another example could be, don't make so many comments on Melissa's Facebook post. It's creepy. Okay, so maybe that's something that could be, you might hear, or something like that. I kind of made these up. I hope they're not too corny. Most people only comment once per post. Okay, so that would be maybe, perhaps, again, you're trying to teach and help to understand what social norms are. And this is a good place to mention that when developing a friendship, it's a really good practice to set expectation on texting, social media interactions up front, right? And then additionally, like in that example that we just gave, you may want to help to correct someone so that they're engaging in a way that is typical, right? They may just be very excited to have a new friend and be texting constantly or posting and just doing, like, a little overkill, which may not be the social norm. And you may want to just help somebody by giving a positive suggestion in that way, in a way to, again, help what you'd like to see, or what we want as a society, what expectations are. Okay. And then perhaps we want to think about using a higher ratio of praise to correction, right? And I know this in this peer-to-peer relationship, it shouldn't be as predominant as it would in, say, like a teacher, an instructor, or someone who's got a group of kids or students in front of them. But think about this in general. How often maybe like we get annoyed with a friend because they're doing something and we're like, knock it off. Why do you always do that, right? And you're kind of pointing out things that you're kind of correcting, or no, not that way, do it this way, or we should do this instead, right? So you've always got this correction, but maybe we think about anytime that something's being done right. So let's take that student that maybe was interrupting a lot, right? So you have somebody you're starting to befriend, but they interrupt a lot. And you could use this positive thing. But what we also want to do, the next step, is that when they have that good interaction, so they waited, like they caught themselves and they waited, maybe quietly say, like, that was really cool. I liked how you that you waited for him to speak and you didn't interrupt. Good job. So that could be a way to look at that. And just a statistic, I read this the other day and I was like, whoa, this is pretty heavy. By the age of 12, children with ADHD hear 20,000 more negative or critical messages than neurotypical peers. I'm going to repeat that. That's really important. By age 12, children with ADHD hear 20,000 more negative or critical messages than neurotypicals. This is why positive language is so important, right? And we want to be thinking about that. And it's just a way of helping to support positive, what's social norm in interaction. All right, great. Just in a little message from, one more came in. I saw Emily wrote something down there, but I have friends without disability who always interrupt, right? Emily, maybe you can use somebody, you know what, these are good skills to be using for kids with or without disabilities, right? Yeah. Let's see, it's just going to happen. Yes, that does happen with students, I'm sure, and with any ages. Should we trying to teach kids without disabilities overall acceptance versus teaching all the time, like having them set varying social expectations themselves? Absolutely. Yeah, Emily, we're not here to, it's a very good point. Like, we got to balance this out. We're not being there policing or whatnot, but just to have that nice balance of what you would with other friends. So basically, Emily, I love that question, but it's, try not to like treat the friendship, much differently just because they're disabled. So have that nice balance, right? That's a fantastic point there. All right. Let's see, how are we doing? Just to check in with any questions. We're doing well here. I'm going to move on to the next one. But I saw a name came up. All righty, fantastic. I just wanted to check in and make sure there was nothing else in the chat box. Next strategy, top strategy, meet people where they're at. So we want to become more available, be present, right? Again, we want to think about in and out of school time. Be present and be there with your friend or newly developed friendship or relationship that you're starting. Learn their communication modes. Somebody may use a facilitation device, they may use sign language, they may communicate in different ways. We want to learn those modes. Maybe there's certain words that they use or choose that they use a lot that it would benefit you to try to understand those words. Perhaps it's a little difficult to understand what somebody's saying, and we could just practice a little bit more. What is it that they're saying? Maybe using gestures or whatnot. All righty. Excellent. All right, and the next one, make modifications on how something is offered to allow a friend to participate. All right, so what does this mean? And I have a video that's going to show this really well. So we want to think about how can we involve, kids with disabilities, any type of disabilities, and what we're doing. And if there's barriers that are there, we want to try to decrease those barriers. We always want to try to have equity as much as possible. But sometimes if we can break down those barriers and participate equally, let's see what that might look like. And some of you may have seen this before. Just going to take a second to pop up this video. So again, making modifications or making systemic changes to a way you offer something so that everybody can be included. So enjoy this. It's just a minute long.
When the best of us steps up, our nation stands a little taller. We all play for Canada.
Okay, that's a Canadian Tire commercial. I'm going to take it though. I love that video. I mean, it does that not just every single time I see the mom looking out the window, I'm like, oh my heart, that is just the most awesome video. I think it really shows that sometimes we need to change the way we offer something, so to allow everybody to participate in a way that, it's kind of on equal ground. So we try to think about that as much as possible on how that can happen. Another top strategy, raise disability awareness and acceptance through movies, through shows and books, right? So I'm going to show you some top ones here. Maybe you watch or read together and discuss, right? Perhaps you invite in other peers to join in. Maybe you start a book club or suggest a movie night. And here's some of my top favorites, right? Alrighty, let's get rolling here. The top of my screen is cut off a little bit, but Intelligent Lives, Temple Grandin, Atypical, Born This Way, Rudy, Love on the Spectrum, I Am Sam, The Miracle Worker, Wonder, My Left Foot. So those are some movies or TV shows. And here are some of my top favorite books to share with you. Look Me in the Eye, Al Capone Does My Shirts, Dancing with Max, Knowing Jesse, that's the one I read the quote from earlier, which I love. Freak the Mighty, Stuck in Neutral, Show Me a Sign, and The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night. So just a few examples. You know what, if you want to go ahead and take a screenshot of that, feel free. Just my top there. You know what, let's throw in the chat box. Anybody else have a favorite movie or book that they'd like to share? to us to share what they could do to help my daughter feel more included in school this year and began for her. And I said, actually, what I need is for you to do all the other kids. Oh, I love that, Melissa. That's fantastic. Absolutely love I Am Sam, my favorite. I love Show Me a Sign. Thank you. Any other suggestions? Books? The Other Sister. Oh, I love these. I'm going to keep that open for a minute and just provide opportunity for any other books, TV shows, or movies. First, Do No Harm. Actually, I haven't seen that or read that. It's a great young adult read about the deaf community that used to live on Martha's Vineyard. You were telling me about that, Melissa. Thank you. Carly's Voice book is my favorite. Excellent. So we have some great resources there, and it's just a really wonderful way for kids to, explore together and maybe talk, watch a movie together, and then have a discussion afterwards. Okay, so we're continuing on in our top strategy. Let's just get to it now. Let's just make a friend, right? Think about how you met or engaged other friends, right? So if you're a high school student or a parent of a high school student, maybe we're a school-age student. I want to talk about that a little bit, right? How did you meet your other friends? It's the same. Just do it. Start by saying hello. Ask for help from adults if you encounter hurdles, and be prepared, right? So sometimes when you're meeting a new friend anyways, it could be a little awkward those first couple of interactions or whatnot, but maybe have some list of questions to help with the conversation. All right, before I move on, I saw some more stuff in the chat box. I want to take a look. Wonder, yep, Sitting Pretty is a great adult memoir. Wonder, excellent. Spelling Love with an X. ALA gives an award each year for the year to the best kids, middle grade and teen books on disabilities. Amazing choices. Excellent. Thank you. Full of wonderful links in there. Thanks, Melissa. So then our next step about making friends, some more tips here. Make a standing lunch date, right? That could be a good place to start. Look for inclusive sports and activities to do together, ones that speak to their interest. Again, we want to be thinking about, things that you would both enjoy together. And engage in friendship work. I'm just going to.
You have other clothes here.
Yeah.
I do, but I'm just gonna wear this home. I'm not staying.
Myself. Thank you. All righty. Okay, now you can hear me. We're going to engage in friendship work. And what does this mean, right? So because some students we recognize with disabilities may struggle to initiate or to engage in social interactions, their peers may need to provide some support, right? So what might that look like? Initiate conversations or activities. You may have to start and be the initiator there. Provide necessary prompts in the moment. This could look like a calming touch on the shoulder or a verbal reminder to tell the waiter what they'd like. It could look like being patient, waiting for a response, right? We understand that often like processing time, there's a little bit of extra time that may be needed. So it's just about being patient. When wanting to fit in, a story is told, right? So maybe someone's telling a story and it may or may not be actual truth, but a response could be, is that what you wanted to happen or what really happened? So it just gives a nice way to kind of address, maybe a story that was a little fabricated. Alrighty, so we want to talk here about the benefits for your school and community, right? We're getting close to wrapping up here. Strengthens morale, and it's an example for other schools, right? When you have a school that has really focused on inclusion and really focused on opportunities for authentic friendships to occur between our students with and without disabilities, that's going to strengthen the school morale, and it's going to be a great example for others. Anytime disability awareness is good, it breaks down barriers. So let me just see. Speechless is also a great show. Thank you for that. Excellent. I just wanted to check in with the chat box there. And then finally, our last, piece of a benefit here, our final tip. If your school has a diversity club, ensure that includes disability and has students with disabilities in it. So that's something to think about. Now I've got two more of our buddy pairs, our friendship pairs from the toolkit that I want to share with you. And here's Daniel and Corinne. And here is Jamie and Jesse and friends. So I'm going to start with just sharing a quote from Corinne and Daniel. Again, this is from the Friendship Toolkit. Corinne explains what having Daniel as a friend means to her. Seeing Daniel is the best part of my day. We laugh, we talk, we have so much fun. It's something I carry with me for the rest of the day. She adds, when I have exciting news, he's the first person I want to tell. When I'm sad about something, he's the first person I want to talk to. Daniel is equally grateful for his friendship with Corinne. She likes me and I like her. I feel happy when we are together. We are always laughing. All right, so that's just an excerpt from the toolkit. Specifically, there were 5 friendship pairs that were shown. And the reason for that, I just want to show what's possible, right? And here's some wonderful, beautiful friendships. And we're going to end with this beautiful friendship between Jesse and Jamie. So I'm just reading the highlighted area there. Jamie Becker met Jesse when they were in 7th grade science class together. She started talking to him, and even though he was nonverbal, they did not have trouble understanding each other. I felt like I could communicate with him by not even saying a word. We just got each other, shares Jamie as she recounts the first day meeting him. In fact, later that year, Jamie's teacher had to move her seat because she was always talking too much to Jesse. I happen to know Jamie, and that's true. I can see that happening, absolutely. It was not too long before Jamie and Jesse started hanging out together outside of school. I would bring Jesse a newly burnt CD of all the music I liked, and we would get a kick out of listening to them together, Jamie shared. A favorite memory with Jesse was when we, Jesse and their friend Kyle, got dressed up for Halloween and handed out candy to the neighborhood kids. Afterwards, we watched scary movies together. It was so much fun. So both Jamie and Jesse, they're somewhat local, right? Unfortunately, Jesse has passed away, and but Jamie lives down in Florida now, but they went to Silver Lake, so they were nearby. And then our other friendship, Corinne and Daniel, they're from Middleborough. So just wanted to show you some local friendship pairs and to show you again what's possible. So one more time, the toolkit is available, and the link Melissa's gonna, she already threw it in because she thinks way, she's a step ahead of me. She's awesome. So the toolkit is in there. Again, there's 4 previous one, and if you're a parent or you work with folks with disabilities, you want to get all 4. So just follow the link for that. This 5th one is the newest one, and this is the one, the tool that you are going to share with the community. So somebody who works at a YMCA, somebody who's runs a theater production, somebody who runs horseback riding lessons, town recreation programs, churches, libraries, scouts, so on and so forth. Okay, so I hope you enjoy that. Now, we are doing so good for time. We have 10 more minutes. I just want to check in on the chat box and see what we got. What suggestion would you have for parents of younger children and approaching parents of peers in regards to developing authentic friendships? Oh, I love this, Amy. I have found that parents of neurotypical peers are always receptive to play dates, invitations, but never initiate or reciprocate with their own invitation. Wow, that is a really good question. So we're talking about the parents of younger children and approaching them, right? In regards to developing authentic friendships. They're receptive to the play date invitation, but don't reciprocate. So I think, something that could be, and if anybody has any suggestions here, is to almost feel, like, hey, it was great that they met up today. Maybe Joey, what would you like to do next time with Jesse, right? And you just kind of start that banter to say it's okay. You might want to have a private conversation with the parent and say, is there something we can help with, maybe facilitating, so this is a reciprocal. We're really looking, Jesse really likes Joey, right, and would like to spend more time with him, and maybe it's something, is there something I can do to help you feel more comfortable about inviting our son over? That could be something. Let's see what else we got in the chat box here. Excellent. All right. The parents of typical kids are afraid to have or host our kids. And I agree with you. Yep. And there could be that fear. So we might want to break that down. And by asking those questions, is there something I can share with you? Can I come over on the first date? Would that help to make it more comfortable? Maybe they're concerned about, physical things or behavioral challenges or whatnot. But having, you there, or is it okay if their brother comes too, or whatever the situation is to help alleviate their fears, but you'd have to understand what the fear is first and then take it from there. All right, great question. So we do have time for Q&A. I do want to share at this point, and then we'll go back to the Q&A, that again, my name is Lisa Drennan. Thanks for being here tonight. I'm the founder of Merge Diversibility Inclusion Consulting. And I'm available to assist any organization, right? Any community organization, recreation, sport, camp, any community organization, or any human service agency. I also work on that side of the bridge and help them with how to access the community, right? So I do that through customized staff training, webinar, online learning, as a keynote panelist or event speaker. I also do coaching. So if, say, like a YMCA is going to hire a new inclusion staff, I do coaching for that staff on how to really make their Y more inclusive. So individual coaching as well as whole team trainings. And then how you can get in touch with me. And if I can ask you to do one thing tonight, go on to mergeconsulting.org. And while you're there, sign up to receive my monthly newsletter. I promise you it's only once a month. I don't have the time to do anything else. So it's never more than once a month. And, I'd love for you to receive that or connect with me on Facebook, on LinkedIn, or Instagram. If you love this training, I would love it if you would write a nice referral testimonial on my social media. If you didn't like it, just write to me privately and let me know how I can make it better. There's my contact info. So again, screenshot that if you'd like, if you want my information there. Excellent. Thank you, Kathleen. And thanks, Casey. I love my newsletters. I love sending those out. So I'm going to stop the share.
Lisa.
Yes.
D. Coleman asked a question in the chat. As a parent of a typical child, how do I make my house inviting to host that will make the child visiting more comfortable?
Absolutely.
And the parent to feel comfortable in our space?
Yeah. Oh, that is a fantastic question, and wonderful for you to just be thinking in that way. So I think, some things you can think about is, making some space, your space welcoming, inviting, and supportive of your guest, right, or friends that are coming. But it is so individualized. I really do feel that it depends on what a child particularly needs. And the best thing is to maybe have that conversation with the parent ahead of time. What can I do? I do know that having perhaps if there's any kind of sensory issues, or this might be a little bit helpful, some of the strategies that I speak of, make sure you have a quiet spot kind of laid out and go over that ahead of time. Oh, you guys are going to play here. But you know what, if it gets a little loud or a little busy, there's quiet space right here for you. If it, and perhaps invite them to bring a particular, I don't know, toy, activity, something that's comforting to them, or could be a sensory need for them. If they have that and they have access to it, if it's a child who uses headphones, invite them to bring them, and then say to the child, when you need your headphones, just let me know, and they'll be right here on the table. Okay, so those type of things. But I do think asking the parent up front, what else can I do to make your son or daughter be more comfortable and inviting them to my home? That's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking it. Yeah, was there any other questions in the chat box that came up? Did I see something else? We have a few more minutes here. Oh, here we go. Hi, Ann. As a coordinator of my inclusion at my YMCA, I want to find out what programs can meet the needs of my community, bridge this gap. Ann, I love you. Thank you. In my local community, through programs and direct and specific programs to help families make these connections at a young age. Oh my goodness, we're going to become best friends. So write to me. Can you send me in the chat box your contact info, and we're going to talk. Okay. So I really like to help you with this. This is my make me happy kind of. That you just made my night there. So and that's what we need, Anne. We need more people like you who are willing to do the hard work to be more inclusive in their practices, to welcome these families, to help support and engage their children in activities with their typical peers. Love it. Thank you so much. Melissa or Jason, did you see anything else in the chat box that I missed? Or if somebody wants to unmute and ask a question, I welcome you to do that as well. We just have a couple more minutes. All right. So this is the first time me doing this training. This is brand new for me, and hopefully it went well. There weren't too many bumps in the road, I don't think. I think it felt like it went smoothly. So, but I certainly welcome any feedback on what would have made this training or this webinar tonight, be more effective for you. But I see so many wonderful, familiar names and faces on here, and I really appreciate you all coming here tonight and spending some time with us. If you have any questions, I'm going to stay here afterwards, and I'll just, sit online for a little bit. If you want to talk to me one-on-one, if you're more interested in doing that, I would welcome you to do that as well. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. We're glad you loved it. So if there's no further questions, thank you. Thank you. Again, just please connect with me, stay in touch, and let me know how we can help to make your communities more inclusive, right? So if you have anybody to connect me with, like our wonderful Anne here who has reached out. So if we have anybody else to connect me with, I'd love an introduction. Thank you. Wonderful. Oh, wonderful feedback. Oh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Excellent. Casey, see you tomorrow morning. We're going to be, it's been a busy week, so I get to see Casey tomorrow again. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you all.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Melissa and Jason, representing Inclusion Matters and their local CPAC. I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, and thank you to all our board members that are here tonight. We really appreciate you being here and all the work you put into this too. Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Roman. Oh, some really nice feedback. That was wonderful. Thank you.